and is called out on strike. Mickey obviously is chagrined. Then Roger swings and fans for Sandy's 5th straight.
Imagine a baseball player who, in the space of 10 years, went from an awkward rookie to the most feared pitcher of his time. A player whose pitches drove even the best hitters crazy and made stadiums freeze in silence. But at the very moment of glory, he did what only a few dare to do. He quit, leaving behind a myth, not a fall. This is the story of Sandy Koufax, a man whose few years of dominance changed baseball forever. Sanford Koufax, whom the entire baseball world would later call simply Sandy, was born in Brooklyn in 1935. His family was Jewish, not rich, but very close-knit. Brooklyn at that time was noisy streets, cramped houses, and children who spent hours chasing a ball on the playgrounds. It was there that Sandy first learned the taste of sports. But what is surprising is that baseball was not his first passion. At school, he became interested in basketball and quickly became known in the area as a talented player. His agility, height, and endurance made him one of the best on the court. Classmates and coaches were sure that he had a future in basketball, and baseball remained more of an entertainment between games. However, fate decreed otherwise. At one of the university games, he was noticed by coaches when he unexpectedly tried himself on the pitcher's mound. His pitch was wild, sometimes too inaccurate, but his strength and speed were impressive. It seemed that this guy had hidden potential that just needed to be revealed. Soon, he began to pitch more and more often. The ball in his hand seemed to acquire another life. It flew with such speed and at such an angle that batters did not have time to react. Although he had neither experience nor accuracy yet, his throws felt like they had energy that could turn into a weapon. The Brooklyn Dodgers scouts could not pass by. They saw that the guy in front of them was raw, inexperienced, but possessed of a rare gift. Thus began Sandy Koufax's path to baseball, although he himself did not yet fully understand how great this road would be. Signing a contract with the Brooklyn Dodgers was a real leap into the unknown for Koufax. In 1955, he officially joined the team. Newspapers wrote about a young talent who could throw the ball so fast that the radars of that time could barely record the indicators. But behind these words was a harsh reality. Sandy had neither a polished technique nor experience playing at a professional level. His first seasons were far from ideal. He could give a series of incredible strikeouts and in the next inning, lose control and allow opponents to knock out too many hits. The coaches threw up their hands. He clearly had great talent, but no one really knew how to turn it into a stable weapon. Sandy knew his patience was being tested. Sometimes he sat on the bench and wondered if he had made a mistake in choosing baseball over basketball. His statistics were unimpressive, and critics called him a pitcher without discipline. There were even headlines in the newspapers that Koufax might never live up to expectations. But there was a fire burning inside him. Every time he stepped onto the mound, he was challenged. He spent hours practicing, learning his moves, trying to find accuracy. His fastball was still fast, but he was learning to control it. And most importantly, he began to hone his famous curveball, a pitch that would become legendary. By the early 1960s, Koufax was slowly transforming from a talented but inconsistent rookie into a player who could make or break games. His patience and persistence were beginning to pay off. The early 1960s marked a turning point in Sandy Koufax's life. After years of torment, criticism, and instability, he was reborn on the pitcher's mound. Everything he had learned and failed to achieve suddenly came together. In 1961, he surprised the baseball world. In one of the games against the Milwaukee Braves, he set a new National League record, 18 strikeouts in one game. This was the moment when the world finally saw the real Koufax. His fastball flew like lightning, and his curveball tore batters off their feet, forcing them to hopelessly swing their bats into the void. From that moment on, his name began to sound louder and louder. Dodgers fans waited for his every appearance on the mound, and opponents began to fear the calendar, because a meeting with Koufax turned into a nightmare, even for the best hitters of the league. But the secret of his success was not only in physical strength. Sandy finally learned to control his pitches. His throws were no longer chaotic. Now they were precise, verified, almost surgical. Hitting such a ball was becoming an almost impossible task. Each season he improved. In 1962, he struck out over 200 times in a season for the first time. In 1963, he took things to a whole new level, posting 25 wins and a league record 382 strikeouts. Baseball had never seen numbers like that in those days. Newspapers began calling him baseball's best left arm, and opposing managers were puzzled. How to stop this guy? His dominance became almost absolute. When Koufax took the mound, the Dodgers had a huge lead before the first pitch was even thrown. Sandy, who was once considered inconsistent and even questionable, was now a symbol of strength and skill. His breakthrough was not just athletic. It was a story of how patience and hard work turned talent into greatness. Since the mid-1960s, the name Sandy Koufax has become synonymous with complete control of the game. When he stepped onto the mound, fans knew that a night was coming when batters would look helpless. His delivery combined speed, graceful trajectory, and accuracy, turning into a nightmare for any opponent. It was during these years that he began collecting what makes a pitcher a legend: no-hitters. In 1962, he pitched his first no-hitter game. The fans and the press were delighted, but for Sandy himself, this was only the beginning. The following year, he repeated the success, and then again and again. Over 4 consecutive seasons, Koufax threw 4 no-hitters, a result that seemed fantastic. Each of these games became an event of national scale, and his curveball brought ovations even from the fans of the opposing team. The culmination of this dominance came in September 1965, when he pitched a perfect game against the Chicago Cubs. 27 batters came out to bat, and all 27 returned to the bench without reaching base. It was the pinnacle of his craft, a rare feat that cemented Koufax's status as the greatest pitcher of his time. But it wasn't just his no-hitters that made him special. He consistently posted seasons with over 300 strikeouts, led the league in wins, and maintained a run average that other pitchers could only dream of. Every time he stepped onto the mound, it seemed as if time stood still in the stadium. Fans held their breath, waiting for another masterclass, and Sandy never disappointed. The early 60s were a golden era for the Dodgers, and Sandy Koufax was at the center of it. His best seasons came from 1963 to 1965. Those 3 years turned him into more than just a baseball star. They made him an immortal legend. He pitched 25 wins in 1963 and set a National League record for strikeouts in a season with 382. But the real story was his dominance in the World Series. Against the dynasty New York Yankees, Koufax put on one of the greatest pitching performances in history. In the first game, he struck out 15, setting a World Series record, and effectively paralyzed the Yankees' offense. He came back in the final game and led the Dodgers to victory again. The Dodgers ended up winning the series in a shutout, and Koufax was named the Finals MVP. But it seemed like it would only get harder. How could he surpass his own greatness? And yet he did it. In the 1965 season, Koufax was back in the spotlight. His statistics were incredible. 26 wins, over 300 strikeouts, and an ERA that was one of the best in the league. But it was the World Series of that year that became his true masterpiece. The Dodgers were playing the Minnesota Twins, and the fate of the series was decided on Koufax's mound. He played the second game, then came back in the fifth, and dominated again. But the apotheosis came in the decisive 7th game. Despite fatigue and chronic pain in his arm, he came out and gave the Dodgers a complete game without a hit, knocking out 10 strikeouts. With his own hands, he gave the Dodgers the championship title. This game has become one of the most iconic in baseball history. The image of Koufax wiping away the sweat and throwing the ball again with superhuman concentration has remained forever etched in the memory of fans. It was the moment when the man became a myth. During these years, he won the Cy Young Award 3 times as the best pitcher, became the World Series MVP twice, and firmly secured his status as the greatest left-handed pitcher of all time. It seemed that Sandy Koufax could have held baseball in his hands for many years to come. He was only 30 years old at the top, in the prime of his life. But it was at this moment that fate dealt a blow from which neither skill nor fame could save him. Since the early 60s, Koufax had suffered from chronic pain in his left elbow. His arm refused to serve him as faithfully as before. Constant inflammation, numbness, torturous nights without sleep. Doctors warned that if he continued to play, he risked becoming disabled. Sandy tried to endure. He would go out on the mound, wrap his hand in ice, swallow painkillers, and pretend that everything was under control. His performances remained incredible, and few people realized at what cost. But inside, he knew his body could not take it. In November 1966, after one of the best seasons of his career, Koufax held a press conference and announced his retirement. The hall was speechless. Reporters could not believe their ears. The greatest pitcher of his time was leaving at his peak. "I want to be able to raise my hand to comb my hair when I'm 40, he said then. These words became a symbol of his decision. He chose health and life over continued suffering, although baseball had lost its king. Koufax's departure was a shock. Fans mourned the loss. Newspapers called his decision a tragedy for the sport. But at the same time, his act was respectable. He left with his legend intact, not allowing his career to fade away gradually. Sandy Koufax left baseball with a myth behind him, a player who dominated so brilliantly and so powerfully that even a short career turned his name into immortality. After Sandy left, Koufax did not seek new platforms for glory. He chose silence. Journalists and fans expected him to become a coach, a commentator, or a public figure, but Koufax chose to remain out of the spotlight. He was a modest man, and his greatness never needed big words. He devoted himself to his family, friends, occasionally helping the Dodgers in training, sharing his experience with young pitchers. His rare appearances at stadiums always turned into an event. When he came out to the public, the stands rose to their feet, applauding. This is how they greet not just an athlete, but a legend. In 1972, his name was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And this was a special moment. Koufax became the youngest player in history to be included in the pantheon of greats. He was only 36 years old. This decision only confirmed that his career, albeit short, left an indelible mark on the sport. Koufax's legacy lives on in more than just numbers and records. He is considered the epitome of the perfect pitcher, powerful, precise, cool-headed. But even more, he became a symbol of the right exit. He left on top, not allowing time or injuries to ruin his image. Young pitchers learned from his example for decades, and fans told their children and grandchildren about him as the man who dominated the mound in a way that made the game stop. His name became synonymous with greatness. The story of Sandy Koufax is more than just a chronicle of victories and records. It is the story of a man who went from an uncertain young man throwing wild and inaccurate balls to a symbol of excellence on the mound. His career was short by baseball standards, but every moment of it was filled with such brilliance that decades later, he is still spoken of with reverence. He left the game at its peak, retaining his image as an unwavering master. There was more to his pitching than technique. It was a combination of talent, tenacity, and character. When he stepped onto the mound, time seemed to stand still and the game itself became an art. Koufax showed the world that greatness is not measured by the length of a career. Sometimes it's the intensity of moments that stick in your mind forever. And so, Sandy Koufax's name is forever etched in the Golden Book of Baseball as the pitcher you can't forget.